All right. Joining me today and hopefully won't leave me for free agency and definitely one of the more dedicated people out here working on the July 4th morning on this Tuesday, John J.F. Sutton. You know him, you love him. What's happening, man?
Josh, what's going on?
Oh, you know, I don't have much of a life, so I'm here to record all things Atlanta related. And you jumped on this quick to join me today, so thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, not a problem, man. I mean, take a break from my barbecue. Just a moment to talk about Hawks.
You're a good man, good man. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. I believe this is your first time in our studios in talking. Just tell us, name, who you are, your relationship to the team, or rather, how long you've been a fan.
I'm John Sutton. Um, I am in a few Facebook groups. You can catch me either in Atlanta Hawks Nation or New Pack City. And yeah, how long have I been a fan? It feels like a while now. I think I started really following the team in the Mike Bibby era, let's call it.
Okay, okay.
So I think that's when I really got down when him and Joe Johnson were at their peak, and
Oh yeah,
good years.
yeah. That's kind of my era. Though I was kind of following them when they were really bad and started to pick it up around the Childress years.
Oh boy,
But yeah, that 2008 year, that's a good year to start following them.
that it was. That made me a believer. That's for sure.
It was the playoff series, wasn't it?
Oh man, when T came in and went up against Derrick Rose, those are vintage memories.
Vintage. So you were there for the Mike Woodson years, and you can feel my pain at different
Ooh
points.
boy.
Now, have you always been watching basketball, or did it just more start with that team?
Yeah. I've been a basketball fan for a minute. I think in Augusta, like no team really has a foothold. So I think I was a Supersonics fan. Shout out to Sean Kemp. And I don't know. I think I just caught a game, and I was wondering why I wasn't rooting for the hometown team. And like I said, when I came in, it was Joe Johnson, Josh Smith, Al, and it's just something fun to get behind. Jamal Crawford, his heroics. Yeah,
Oh, Jamal. Um,
yeah.
all right, nice, nice. Augusta. I have to tell Garrick that there are more Augusta fans out there. He
It
doesn't.
was
He doesn't.
about there's seven of us all together.
Seven, seven. You counted. Okay, nice. All right, so I'm going to give you this moment to clear the air. You can give me your state of the Hawks up until the most recent kind of big signing that's happened. Not for the Hawks, but for Denver. So give us your thoughts on the year, last couple of years, your thoughts during this free agency. Just your state of the Hawks address right now.
All righty. Yeah. Where do you begin? I think to go from that 60 win team to where we're at now. It's very weird how this kind of happened, but at the same token, it feels long overdue. I think we were definitely a team with the cap on it. Coach Bud really took a bunch of second option guys, and with that system of play, just kind of got the most out of them.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of length, we had a bunch of shooting, and we just had a team full of gentlemen who understood their role and played them to a T. But whenever you have that, you're going to have people start getting siphoned. And you had Damari, couldn't get picked up. He left. And that's when that first domino kind of fell. And even right on to the coaching. I mean, I think we don't talk about that often, but you had Quinn Snyder. He left. Kenny Atkinson got picked up, and I also think that that kind of plays a part in, I wouldn't say the decline, but kind of the drop off in success, if you will. But
Okay.
yeah, that said, we are long overdue for a rebuild.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad we're kind of starting fresh. I think when Ferry came in, he did a pseudo rebuild, if you will. I think
Yes.
he found a bunch of, he kind of kept a core of guys, and now he found a bunch of cheap contracts, and we molded around that. But I think now we're going for a little bit more of a clear the deck. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens going forward. It is
Yeah.
scary and exciting.
Yeah. Man, I think that 61 team was the most fun team just because no one on there was like a super, a superstar. It was it was a fun team to root for. Now, granted, at the same time, as you said, with Damari leaving, they kind of outplayed their value for how much they were worth. So,
Oh
um,
yeah.
so it's kind of how it's clearing how it is now. So recently, I know we have had a many arguments and a many things that I was wrong on, but let's just straight up and say this. Um, how did you feel the last year? The different,
Ooh.
the most recent signings, let's say, of the
All right.
last starting with last summer.
Well,
Um,
first and foremost, you've got to get the big dog out of the way. Let's talk about Dwight.
okay, let's go ahead.
Um, Dwight was Dwight was a weird fit, and I think everybody saw that just right off the bat.
Yeah.
And now that we're getting a lot of back end information about who wanted that to come to pass, I don't think we'll ever know the truth because no leaks
Yep.
from
Yep.
that front office, but it happened.
Here's the
We
thing.
we definitely had a void of rebounds. There's no secret. I
Yeah.
think for everything that Al Horford did, and God knows he did a lot, there's one thing he wasn't great at, and we could have been better.
Yeah.
So Dwight immediately fixed that. He gave us a rim protection element that we hadn't had. I
That.
will contend to the death of me that we protected the rim decently with Paul and Al. I don't think they get the credit they deserve, but it's definitely a different dynamic with Dwight in there.
Yep.
That said, um, it, it was a very different team. It was a
Yep.
very different scheme than what we had seen from Coach Bud thus far, and the force fed kind of ISO post that we had to give Dwight was slowly kind of dulling my soul every time I saw it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it gummed up a lot of things, and there was a lot of changes also as well. You promoted Dennis to a starter now,
Yeah.
and he's officially playing completely different ball because that's a radically different team going from Al Horford to Dwight Howard.
Yes.
So there were a lot of those changeovers. We saw Kent Bazemore take a drop off in production,
Mm-hmm.
and
I'll leave it at that. But yes,
yeah,
go ahead.
definitely had a drop off in production, but he kind of normaled out to towards the end. And I'm hoping that was just the nerves of that new contract, since he's now currently the highest paid player on the team. So I think yeah, you add the newness of a lot of that stuff, of kind of promoting Dennis, throwing in Dwight in there, and I think most would have expected it to be at least a transition year.
Yeah, that's definitely a Oh man, last year was the thing that happened. I think it was I think I had less fun watching last year than I have the past like 10 years. Uh
I would agree.
yeah, last year was it's frustrating watching team full of veterans lose like they did. I mean, trying this is not a Dwight Howard bashing section because,
Because
I will say,
he was
oh,
good.
yeah, he was better than I thought he would be, and he was good at the couple of things that he did really well, and he will have value for somebody, but where Atlanta was last year, that was it was not it. It was not him. Um, it was out of place, like you say,
Yeah.
and it was just very tough to watch. Especially, I guess would you say it was sugarcoating or because of his whole I'm back home in Atlanta campaign that hit home with so many fans where I'm kind of like, oh, you're 32 now. Where was this the last 4 years when you could have come home?
I mean, when Danny Ferries first signed up, his literal first job, and I believe he sent this out to ticket holders, was I'm going after CP3 and Dwight. And
And we got didn't Atlanta get hit for tampering with it that year, I
I'm,
believe.
I'm not even sure, but it's very well a possibility. But
I think that's what the cause was. Some
got you.
employee, some employee said we could go after Dwight or CP3, and because it's technically the Hawks organization saying that during the summer before free
Mm.
agency, it was seen as tampering, which I don't even know what tampering is even more anymore after this past week.
Same. But yeah, so that definitely happened, and I don't even think he took a an interview with us. So
No, no, but
yeah, so
no,
it was a great show it, and it was fun. It was exciting. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, even though I
yeah,
didn't have the highest hopes for it, but the optics of it all looked really good. It was very, and he seems like a guy who's genuinely happy to come
yeah,
home and play for us in the twilight of his career.
yeah,
So, I definitely enjoyed it, and I think from a marketing standpoint, I think if you wanted to get some extra butts and seats, bringing home the hometown kid ain't a bad idea.
yeah. Had to fill in for that Josh Smith void.
Very
No,
true.
kidding. Yeah, it was. I like I said, he wasn't as bad as I thought he was going to be. We all knew he was way past. Well, most of us knew he was way past his prime. So I don't know what what you wanted, but hey, that was kind of the first step of the future of this team, and I'm sure in the next week or couple weeks we're going to see more of that. So that being said, let's move on to our next subject, in which we are talking about future steps on the team. Atlanta let go or watched another very valuable asset leave less than 48 hours ago to Denver. Uh, what do you think of Paul Millsap going to Denver? Should we be upset? Should we be happy? Should we boo him like some people do? At least when he returns to Atlanta. What you think, John?
Oh, I am strongly out of the camp of Boo Paul Millsap.
Oh yeah.
Man, that guy for what every year he's been here, he's been an all-star.
Yes.
He's been a
Fact.
consummate professional. Um, like what didn't he give you? He was very much a two-way play. He'll never get the credit he deserves for his defense. Um,
His defense was spectacular. Great ball handler too for that
definitely.
position. Yeah.
Um, yeah, like do it all, Paul.
Yeah.
Hashtag do it all, Paul. He shot threes. He had a mid-range game. He could take you in the post, rebounded, blocked shots. He got a bunch of steals. Just what can't you say about Paul Millsap? I think I'm a fan. I think he's going to a great situation over in with a very young Denver team.
Yeah.
And man, that combination of him and Jokic, whew, that is going to be fun to watch. So
Yeah.
I'm rooting for the guy.
I will never. I think I'll always be a fan of him. I will always be a fan of Millsap. And not one point in his 4 years here in Atlanta did at any game did anybody say like he quit on the game,
Very
which
true.
was which was something else. Like say what you want about other players that came through Atlanta, good or bad, but that was just something he always tried hard. Um, he always had to be on the floor for the Hawks to be at their best. So,
That is definitely a fact. And wow,
um,
again, man, he's just one of those. Paul Millsap is impossible to hate.
yeah,
Just a very understated man who just brings it every night and brings it at a high level. And the guy was definitely a top 25 player in this league, especially in the last few years. And
yeah,
I mean, people forget that that first year when Paul went, not Paul, but Al went down with the pectoral
Achilles.
tear.
Oh, yeah, that
Yeah,
picked
and Paul put the team on his back and got us to the playoffs on a brand spanking new team, brand new system, and he was a large reason why we got there.
Yeah, up there with that was the year we had to bring Muscala over, and I believe
Hmm.
Paul, off the top of my head, he was playing with Hawks. Most Hawks fans, most to me, most bipolar player. You either really hate him or you appreciate what he did. Pero Antic and Gustavo Ayon, I believe, was the other big.
Yeah, I think Gustavo gave us like half a season, if I'm recalling that correctly. But
Oh, half? We got that much out of him?
I'm trying to give him a little extra credit.
Okay, okay.
Um, but yeah, I think Pero was the featured big, and Pero was what he was. And I let everybody form their own opinion. But this is about Paul, and Paul was
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was the rock. He was the anchor man.
Uh,
Mm,
Emergency center. And he was actually pretty good at it too.
very true.
We weren't. It was just like odd when we go small, be like Paul's a center. It's like, hey, we're not getting scored on a ton. This is surprising. Um, one thing I also liked about him is that I guess you want to teach to young players, or that I mentioned to people when you play. He never went shot block. So block hunting, I guess you would say. He would always just stand solid in front of his man on defense, and that's to me how he got a lot of the steals because he never really jumped lanes. He was just very smart about it,
Right.
and yeah, just great player, great guy in the locker room. You ever see his interviews? He's incredibly professional. Jamila puts up a ton of his interviews, and just everything he says is just like, man, I. That's what you need to hear.
I mean, if you were giving a clinic on how you would want young kids to play,
Yeah,
you play a Paul Millsap tape. He's
yeah,
just a professional all around. Can't say
yes,
enough good things about him.
yes. So, um, something about Paul is that when he came in here, we signed him on a 2-year contract. I believe it was 19 million a year, roughly around 19 million a year after he spent 7 years in Utah. This was, I want to say, the first year where we were kind of like, okay, the giant air quotes, if you will, Josh Smith replacement. I know a lot of fans don't really know much about him. I know he was pretty good, but I didn't know how good because in that Ty Corbin offense where you're force feeding Al Jefferson the ball, it's kind of hard to see the value of players because we also took another player from that team that was on the bench that we turned into a starter, but we went over talked about him a couple years ago. But yeah, did you have any kind of initial thoughts if you can think back a few years ago when you first joined the team?
No, I think the only thing I learned about Paul was YouTube videos and just his stats.
Yeah,
I mean, Utah wasn't getting a bunch of TV coverage. in this region, that's for sure. And so I looked him up, and he was just a solid guy, but I had no idea what we were kind of getting our hands on. So I was hopeful. I
Yeah.
thought that kind of switching over from Josh Smith, who did a lot of things himself. I thought that we were going to, we were going to need a very versatile four, and
Yes.
he definitely did it.
Yeah. When Millsap came over, I just knew he was a solid player, but I didn't know like if he was good or not. And I was like, I know he's solid and good, but we never really got a chance to display it and see. And eventually, halfway through the season, I was going out of my way, not really out of my way, but I was making the point saying he's essentially everything we wanted out of Josh Smith when he was here. Good passer, good shooter. He's athletic. He's not close to Josh in athleticism, but he's athletic enough at his position
Yeah,
to be really good. To be good.
you can ask John Henson, who got baptized by him. I believe we were in Milwaukee. Just
Oh
how
yeah.
athletic Paul is, and yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's very sneaky. It is very old
Yeah.
man game, but it, he keeps it in his reserve, so it's there.
I love the old man basketball game, and that was probably another thing that I liked about him, the craftiness of old man basketball.
Indeed, it feels like you can go out there and do everything he's doing. Like
Yeah,
you don't necessarily have to be able to jump 20 feet high. Like if you can, again, he was just smart. He picked the
yeah,
spots and shot selection. I don't think we talk about that enough. I
yeah,
think Josh Smith had a few issues there, and transitioning from that into Paul, who just always had himself in good position to take good shots. And I think a lot of that credit also has to go to Bud.
yeah,
But you just knew when you gave him the ball, he was at least going to give you a shot to get a bucket.
yeah. He never took long twos. I think the farthest he's taken a jump shot outside of if it was at the bottom of the shot clock was probably as far as the free throw line. Because I don't
Yeah,
think I don't know. I can't really think of him. Well, outside of a three pointer, obviously,
right.
but his just shot selection was so incredibly smart, which is why how you mentioned when you look at him play, you're like, I could go out there and do that. Just make get myself into a good position for a shot, and then when I go play, I realize I can't. So,
Paul Millsap is inspirational for people in their 30s who still want to get out there and get after it.
well, like me, people in their late 20s who
Uh,
just athleticism is just gone. Gone from their younger years when they try to jump, and every time they jump, they feel the pop in their ankle, and they're like,
oh
"No,
boy.
nope, can't do
Oh yeah.
that." Okay, well, Paul was here on a 2-year contract, 19 million. We didn't really know what to expect. Took me half a year to realize this is everything we wanted from Josh Smith that we wish we could have gotten, attitude included. He then kind of, I guess you'd say, flirted with going to Orlando after his contract was up, but then he resigned for basically the same contract, 3-year contract, $20 million a year. The last year being a player option, which we know about. And he made the All Star game 4 straight years. I believe Atlanta was the first team he also got a triple double with. Um, he was left everything on the floor and was criminally underpaid for
Yeah.
his entirety in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think the tragic thing about all this is that and I think most of the fans were kind of along the same line of thinking that I was. That due to us trying to trade him twice very publicly,
Okay.
that he wasn't going to take a hometown discount. And neither should he have had. Like he's been horribly underpaid for the production that he's brought. And I was worrying that he was going to look for, just the biggest contract that he can get from a team that has quote unquote spurned him.
Yeah.
And again, I wouldn't necessarily be mad at that fact. I could not blame Paul for that because I would definitely be doing that myself.
Yeah.
So that was my fear of him taking like a 5-year contract because for everything that Paul Millsap absolutely is, he's not better than Father Time, and he still remains undefeated. And
Yes.
if we're not getting the same guy in year 3, 4, and 5, but we're steadily paying for the guy we got at 33 and 34, it's working out bad for us.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Um, that was a huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about trading, but you're talking about trading, and his name was in trade rumors a lot. We can get into that later on. We're going to get into that actually later on about steps that possibly could have been taken or alternate, let's just say alternate universes out there. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But yeah, criminally underpaid. Um, didn't expect him to take a home team discount. For how much we were paying him, we should have just I don't know, like given him one of those lottery checks, just like, thank you. You did so much. Like we need to raise the number 4 and then like put his contract under that and raise it up into the stands. Like it was amazing.
Indeed.
It's going to be interesting years down the line because Atlanta's going to have a Remembrance Day of at least a game of the 60-win team. The number 1 in the East team. They're going to do that at some point down the line.
I don't know if I'm emotionally ready for that. It's gonna,
Now,
that's gonna hurt.
now, does Jeff Teague show up? That's my that's the question.
Oh boy. Um,
Yeah, I think he
I
does.
would hope so. I think Jeff is.
He
eh, I think everybody understands the business of all this, so I would hope.
Jeff.
I think that whole team was full of high character guys who kind of understand how this game goes. As sad as breaking that team apart was.
Yeah, even our third string, Shelvin Mack, high character.
Very true.
I'm trying to think who else was on that roster.
Oh
Who
boy.
was the least high character player on that roster? Mike Scott.
I mean,
I,
yeah.
I guess so.
I mean, and Mike Scott is still a pretty high
Yeah,
character dude with the minor
yeah.
infarction apart from it. He even handled
Yeah.
that in the most high character way possible. So he that's a great question.
Um, Paralantic's Instagram account. I don't know. Um, okay, but we're talking about the 60-year team, excuse me, 60-win team. Paul was a huge part of that team because, well, like Al, Paul did everything. And, the sad thing is we will never know how good that team was in the playoffs because just the injuries that happened, which
Yeah.
shout out to the NYPD, but
Mm.
just everything that happened. And I don't know. I think that 61 team was the most fun I've ever had rooting for a team ever.
Yeah, like
Reminiscing on it.
man, like you, I just wonder what could have been if we saw those guys at full strength. Just because, again, like with many people on that team, Tabo was underrated.
Yeah.
Like he was a guy who just did a bunch of the small stuff. I think that year he wasn't scoring a bunch, but kind of like DeMar without the jump shot.
Yeah.
Played great defense, just hustled. Always had himself and the rest of the team in position. And man, oof,
Yeah.
it
Bazemore
is.
as their backup shooting guard. And on the contract he was on, as a backup shooting guard, he was pretty good.
Yeah,
He was decent at that point. Um, let's see, Jeff. Uh, you had the the adventure of Dennis Schroeder at the backup point. Pero served his role.
Hmm.
He was the don't he was the go out there and beat up big guys role.
He gave you his
Roy,
fouls.
Roy Hibbert's arch nemesis.
uh,
That was that was a fun team
Hold
to root
on.
for.
I think an argument could be made that Kyle Korver was Roy
Oh,
Hibbert's arch nemesis. I
was
still have that
oh
GIF
oh
saved of
excuse
him
me.
deleting multiple Roy Hibbert shots. I'm assuming Roy Hibbert wakes up in cold sweats and sees that well coiffed hairdo sneaking up behind him
No
to
matter how much
delete.
no matter how much he sweated, Kyle Korver's hair was still perfect.
This is a fact.
It was man, and I think that was the year that everyone in Atlanta just like was all in on Kyle Korver.
Yeah, man.
He was the fan favorite for the city of Atlanta, which is
Hey,
saying stuff.
I
And like
remember.
everyone loved him. You go in a barber shop, you talk to him, be like, "Yeah, but you can't shoot like Kyle Korver." You see,
Uh, that was
uh,
I didn't listen to a bunch of Atlanta sports radio for a
uh,
long list of reasons,
yeah,
but that year, uh, listening to a bunch of those fan calls, every other call, that was definitely fun. I think it's been a long time since you felt that kind of energy just come out and about Atlanta
yeah,
as far as basketball anyway. And wow, and it was definitely enjoyable. I
yeah.
think there was a lot of fans who, bless their hearts, had a lot of opinions, and I try to remind them that y'all are in the midst of something very special.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, soak it in, because it is not guaranteed to come back again.
Yep. Especially with, I don't know. The thing about it was we all kind of knew it because of the personnel on the roster. Like that was also the year that the Warriors got big.
Yeah,
And we knew deep down on the inside. We didn't want to admit it, but we knew that team didn't really have that much talent on it. We maybe had three good players, and then the rest of them were really good at the one role they had, kind of thing.
right.
Um, Kyle, amazing shooter, but we did not trust him to dribble the ball. Um,
No, sir.
Damari, great defender, good rebounder, hustle defender. We did not trust him to dribble the ball.
Very true. I,
Jeff, did what he did, but we did not trust him on defense. you know, it's
yeah,
it was that team, fun team to watch. Team full of nobodies. The best 60 best year of my life watching them.
I completely agree. And it just kind of shows you how well, if a team is put together well and
Yeah,
everybody understands their role and nobody tries to get outside of that, it's really awesome to see what that accomplishes. And I think Bob Rathbun harks on this a lot. Shot making. I
yeah,
think it was a great system. It was good players who knew their roles, and it was also more than just a pinch of luck because these guys were just hitting their shots. And I think we've consistently under Bud gotten a lot of open shots. Like I still think we're some of the tops in the league. I don't know about last year, but years prior, we were always up there in open shots.
they had open shots. I just don't think they could make any shots.
I was about to say making them is a different story.
yeah, yeah. But I guess we had to close the book on that 61 team because the last remaining starter from that team is now gone. Still have a couple guys that were on the bench on the team now. Well, shoot, only one that I can think of outside of the coach, and that's Dennis. But off the top of my head, is anybody else from that team still on the roster? Do you know?
I Oh my God, I do not. Muscala, I guess.
Well, he's technically hasn't been resigned yet. Same with the
Well,
Cephalosha.
yeah, also, like, wow, that's also very true. So yeah, as
And
far
hey,
as
bud.
people secured is Bud, Darvin Ham, and Dennis.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, Dennis Bazemore. That's right.
Bazemore.
Bazemore.
Can't forget him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, 61 team, and thank you for the best year of my life watching that team. Um, they got swept in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals, but they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They finally beat Paul Pierce in the playoff series, which
Ah, so
was so
satisfying.
it was so
Mm,
great.
so satisfying, especially when he called game.
Oh yeah, that
Uh,
I mean, we got swept by the Cavs, which hurt at the time because I'm still upset about that Al Horford rejection,
yeah,
getting rejected. I'm still upset about a lot of things, but we were beat up pretty bad. They were missing some guys, but they still had the guy.
very true.
Um, Jeff, poor Jeff played his heart out. That game he had like 30 something, trying to will a win, but couldn't do it. And but we beat Paul Pierce. That was the thing.
Yeah, you
So
got to take your victories where you can.
I will take that victory. So let's see. Paul is off to the Nuggets. You said he's going to be a great fit next year. Now, how do I pronounce his name? Is he Jokic or Jokic? Jokic?
I'm going Jokic. I
Okay.
do believe, but do not quote me.
So Paul is gone on a contract of 3 years, 90 million, and two of those years are guaranteed. The last year is a team option. That is shocking to me because he could have gotten more years, more money. Um, I think that's a great contract for Denver. Like he probably has 2 more years before he starts to really decline, if I had to take a guess. And it makes me wonder, should we have just brought Paul Millsap back? And why didn't we offer a contract? What are your thoughts on that?
I think from according to everything that Schlink has said since he's gotten here, he was really looking forward to uh, just rebuilding a team. I don't know if he just wanted it in his vision, if he felt it was time, but he was very steadfast on not signing bad contracts. And I just think that maybe he just understood that this was we're rebuilding here, and he was kind of maybe the organization was set on that because yeah, man, that's what I have to think. If Paul Millsap could get that contract over there and we didn't hit him with more, I'd have to imagine that the organization just made a decision to rebuild. And and rebuilding around Paul Millsap is not going to accomplish that goal of getting assets, unfortunately, because we would be too good with Paul Millsap to get decent draft picks and so on and so forth. We would just again be stuck in that 20 to 18 to 30 zone that we've lived at.
Yeah,
So I
yeah, that's the
think
thing.
that was the thinking behind it. Um, I don't. It feels like we should have offered him. I mean it sounds like Paul was felt a little bit of disrespect from that, and I would have hoped that they would have reached out to him and kind of gave him a heads up on what the team was doing. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's become very clear that the Hawks are in the rebuilding stage. They didn't offer a contract just because of that. Now, it would have been nice to have him back in the sense of to kind of like tutor John Collins,
Mm.
but it's kind of as you mentioned with Millsap on the team and how bad the East is looking now. They'll sneak in. They'll sneak in. So Like Paul Millsap is that good.
Yeah.
Good. We saw that last year when he was gone, and it was just kind of like, oh, this team is not good at all.
A very sharp and dramatic drop off in production in every feasible way.
Yeah,
Defense, the offense, the ball movement. It was rough.
ball movement, ball handling. He's one
Yeah.
of the three starters who could actually handle the ball, and you're instantly down to two.
Yeah.
Um, so it was probably for the best, but the things that really hurts about it that we can jump into now that you alluded to earlier is, well, let's talk about that 60-win team. Going back to that, we had a 60-win team. We had assets. What did we get back from that? What was our growth? Excuse me, our Roth. I was going to say Roth IRA, but
A return on interest or investment.
that that's a good word. I
Yeah.
like that. Return on interest, return on investment. We got a draft pick from Cleveland that's not going to be active until I believe 2019.
Right.
Hopefully they'll be bad that year.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. LeBron leaves. um, and we got to which to me was the best move Atlanta made in the last 2 years. Um, I thought it would take more to get in the lottery, but it only required Jeff Teague to get into the lottery. They got the number 12 pick, which that was the best move they made in the last 2 years, in my opinion. Torn Prince.
Hmm.
That's it. We had 2 straight years where our best players left for nothing, and it's just really hurts this year. Like I'm not mad at Paul at all. I'm just more as mad that we got nothing for it because there have been those on the social media, those out there saying, I know myself, I've been preaching this the last year, over a year, saying, yo, we need to have a fire sale because we're not going to be able to afford anybody now that their value is up.
Yeah. I
And,
yeah.
people wanted to keep winning. And, the fans out there that want to tank, but don't understand the tank, what's required for that.
Yeah, I've heard some very interesting theories in a few of these Facebook groups, and it feels like the general consensus from fans are they want to tank and get draft picks, but at the same token, they also want to win and compete. Above all, above all else, is compete with Cleveland. The fans have a very one-sided rivalry with Cleveland. So
Does Cleveland even acknowledge us? Like,
I am not sure. I do not. I'm not even exactly sure they know we exist. But uh, both things can't exist in the same space. Like
yeah.
you kind of have to be very bad in order to get good. And as one who doesn't really like to quote Stephen A. Smith, he did say something of poignant. And in the NBA, you either need to be really good or you need to be really bad in order to get good. And that kind
So,
of being in the middle is not where you want to be. It's purgatory.
excuse me. I was about to delete this, stop this episode right now because you said to quote Stephen A. Smith, but then you ended it and said, "But I don't like to do that." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, okay."
I do not
So,
make it a habit, sir.
okay, yeah. So it was, oh man, rough times ahead, but watching a bad team with young players, in my opinion, is going to be more fun than watching whatever I saw last year.
That I
Um,
completely agree with. I think,
I, I, yeah, I would rather watch the young guys. I love to watch the rookies play, and I'm more as looking forward to that than anything that happened last year.
yeah, it's something special about just watching guys get out there and just kind of give it their all, even if they're out there making mistakes. See them getting coached up and I think at that point in time you have the security of knowing the direction that you're headed in, as opposed to having a bunch of veterans who are not looking the smoothest and not exactly sure where the season is going to end up at. And so yeah, I would definitely agree of seeing a bunch of young guys. But I wonder how this coincides with the new arena and that rebuild. Just the fact that we're going to put out a very young product as far as the players, at least I'm assuming, uh, with a brand new arena and insides. That's going to be very interesting.
What's with Atlanta doing new arenas and having bad teams? Is this foreshadowing for the Falcons?
I sincerely hope.
Is this is this a foreshadow? Got rid of the offensive coordinator, but you know, but anywho. So
Different podcast.
yeah, yeah, different podcast, different conversation. So so what do the Hawks do going forward? That's kind of something that we've been uh, wondering now. I we do know that the Hawks gave Hardaway a qualifying offer of 4.6 million, and the pretty much consensus out there is do not pay Hardaway more than 10 million a year. Let him walk.
I think that's a consensus among some people. I think there's a very large swath of fans that want to give him, they want the Brinks truck to pull up. Or at least I think I've heard 17 million and 15. And
Good lord. Okay.
yeah, I like Hardaway and I think Hardaway brings a lot, but I also think he's a very limited player in certain aspects.
Yes.
And, you know, you have to wonder how much more development he has within him. Because in fairness, he's come a long way. But at
Yeah.
the same token, I think we really are set on cheaper contracts and trying to maximize value. And, after
Yeah.
this Bazemore experience, I think the Hawks should be very careful with how they dole out some of those contracts. And it
Yeah.
appears that they're doing so.
Now, when I was talking to KL last week, one thing he did mention to me was the good thing about Hardaway is he's another ball handler that you have out there on the floor. Love him or hate him, uh, he mentioned that as much as we love Kyle Korver, that wasn't something that Kyle was bringing, was ball handling. And that's kind of something that you need because it's really difficult to start an offense or have any kind of offense when you only have one ball handler on the floor, and that being Dennis for us.
Mm.
And but however, at the same time, we just signed Dennis to a contract extension, which I think is a value. Um, People might have their thoughts about Dennis out there and his um, shooting, I guess you would say. But to me, I believe that was kind of more as the product on who was on the floor with him at the time. And we saw in the playoffs, at least last year, the difference that he made when um, I'll just come out and say when Dwight Howard didn't play in the fourth quarters, the difference that he made.
I mean, and again, this is not a slight to Dwight. I think
Yeah,
Dwight
yeah,
was very much a round peg in a square hole. And and again, to Dennis's credit, his entire time in the NBA has been based off of space and pace.
yeah,
And when Dwight's in there, kind of lose out on both of those things. So when the floor was spread, you got more space, and you can move a little bit faster. Dennis had a lot better moments. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what kind of step he takes because he shot all right. It wasn't
yeah,
great, but it was better than I think what a lot of people expected.
yeah.
Well, he made
Average.
strides. Yeah,
He
and
yeah,
fearing he was going to be below average.
he attacked the rim a ton, which is a good thing, and
Indeed.
showed his value there.
And to your point, without that other ball handler, a lot of those responsibilities fell on him.
Yeah.
And to put that on a young guy, it's one thing to put it on Teague, who's been in the league for a while. But a brand new starting point guard, that's a lot of responsibility.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And at least Teague, when he started, he had the ultimate safety cushion of Joe Johnson in the backcourt with him.
Indeed.
So that's something else I think people are missing. But so Hardaway qualifying offer 4.6 million, I believe 10 is the max a lot of people are willing to give him. We love Hardaway just because we watch a lot of games with him, but there are a lot better players we can give an offer to than Hardaway out there if we were to make a qualifying offer. Um, KCP is a free agent. It's not a free agent, restricted free agent this year. We're seeing Otto Porter get offers. So, I mean, those are some players that you would think, if we were to give money out to, maybe we should look at them, young players as well.
Indeed. I think KCP is as an avid Georgia fan, which I am, not so much a basketball team, but he was one of the few bright spots to come out of UGA, and the kind of I kept an eye on him peripherally while I was up there in Detroit, and he's grown quite a bit. He's
Yeah.
he's demanding not a lot of money on the market, but he's definitely getting looks. So I would not be mad with that. I think another name that's popped up out of nowhere is Jermichael Green,
Yes. Yes.
who I've been looking into, and he looks like a very Hawksy type guy. Just another two-way player. Can guard a couple of different positions, and he's got a decent shooting touch, and he really goes after that rim.
Now, one guy I was thinking about, why don't we just throw him the max offer? Noel Nerlens. Why not? Still relatively young. I mean, I would rather, and granted, this is my if Josh was a GM, but I would be a horrible GM. So only listen to half of me. But Nerlens is still a young player. It's not like, how do I put this? If we're giving money to people who want, to those fans out there who want the team to be competitive, I don't know how to say this, but the Hawks just aren't going to be good in the next year or two, no matter, who we give money to. So might as well just invest in young players. Therefore, when hopefully they'll be good, and once their assets pile in, I guess 4 or 5 years down the road, they'll be, in their prime. And I just feel Nerlens is really good at attacking the rim, really good roll man, good defender. He would be great pairing with our other young player. Why not?
I mean, I completely agree. I think you start looking at the one kind of knock against Collins was defense and in fairness. We have no idea how this is translating to the pros. It could be better. It could be worse than what we imagine.
Yeah.
But one thing Nerlens has shown in his young career is he's pretty good on that defense, man.
Yes.
So I know of worse pairings in the backcourt. So I mean, and then also with these contracts, you start thinking about bird rights and maybe investing a little bit on the front end can pay off on the back end. So yeah, I think there are a few free agents that I'm very interested in seeing what can develop. And I think Shalink has taken the kind of right course of action and did not get in early on the kind of fury of activity that was happening. And just
Yeah.
kind of wait until let everything play out and let some other teams kind of gum up their cap space. And that makes deals a lot more feasible than say what Philadelphia was doing.
Yeah. Um,
I think what JJ Redick got $20 million for a year.
oh,
Yeah.
everyone's getting money. It's gonna be interesting when next year when everybody is just capped out. Except for Atlanta, apparently. We have this space, and I mean, why not? If your team's not going to be good, you don't have to go outspend everybody.
Very true.
I mean, I mean,
As long as these contracts are movable.
yeah. Shoot. Also, if you're looking in, I mean, shoot, take bad contracts, but if you add a draft pick to it or something, or another young player,
I
we're in
mean,
position for that too as
that,
well.
that is true. I think collecting assets is something we should definitely be concerned with. Granted, we haven't always had the greatest draft history,
Well,
um, but at the same time,
hopefully,
we don't have the same
yeah,
people drafting.
yeah. So, speaking of being an asset, Atlanta was recently, and recently, I mean, this is like the last 12 hours. Like, I had to read about this last night and this morning to try to understand this. Again, we are recording this the morning of July 4th. So, by the time this goes out, this is probably going to be old news. But Atlanta was involved in a three-team trade with Denver and the Clippers. I believe the Clippers desperately want Gallinari. Is that what, for whatever reason? And Atlanta is to be receiving Jamal Crawford, fan favorite Jamal Crawford, who doesn't want to be here. I don't know if you read that or not.
Yes, he expressed that very quickly.
Says he doesn't want to be here, but apparently I'm just reading on my couple reliable sources. Atlanta at least is trying to negotiate him to be like, nah, you got to pay back some of that money. You just can't get a buyout. So it's being discussed. One thing they could do, and this is just me speaking, what if they flip him for Shumpert? I don't know. But talking about him, we are to be receiving the Houston's draft pick from the Clippers. This is a top three draft pick, top three pick next year for Houston, top three protected pick next year for, man. Why can't I speak today? And possibly the greatest name in NBA history, Diamond Stone.
That cannot be underestimated. That is a great name.
Like the potential right there. Diamond Stone, who's had a stint in the G League. John, you have no idea how many times I had to correct myself from saying D to G League. But of what I understand, he's a pretty decent player. Let me bring something up. I think like per 36, he averaged like 28 and 14 per 36 in the G League, or I don't know if I'm reading that right, but that's pretty good that you'd want to get a chance. But you mentioned that you did some digging on him.
That I did. I think apparently he didn't play a lot with the Clippers, and I think that's kind of be expected. To my knowledge, what little bit I know about the Clippers, I think there was a little bit of a log jam at in their backcourt. But he apparently got I think about 16 games in the G League for I slip up. And just looking at a few of the highlights, he really feels Hawksy. I think he's got a nice shooting touch. He can even stretch it out to the three. He doesn't take a bunch of threes, but he's shown that he can hit it. Um, he's got a bunch of post moves that look that were very effective in the G League. And I mean, for a fellow of his size, I want to say he's like 6'9", 6'10", about
Yeah.
250, 260. He's a yeah, he's a load on that block, and he knows how to operate around it. So, I mean, granted, I don't know the name, and he's also 20 years old.
He's also a pretty good free throw shooter, at least for his size, which
Oh
is
yeah, I
something
think
else
it
I want
was
to stay out.
80%, somewhere around
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would love to see that kid in Hawks University and see what could be made out of him. I mean, 20 years old. It's nice to get in on that.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm also all for the draft pick. Now,
Hmm.
unless if something goes horribly wrong in Houston, we're probably going to be looking at like a late 20s pick right there. Which, hey, if the dominoes fall correctly, the Hawks could have 3 draft picks next year.
Hmm.
So that's something to hope for.
And
So something.
I think fans get caught up in the fact that it's not, a super high pick, which would be nice. But, having first round draft picks available can also be packaged with other things and other deals. So I think that's something very important to keep in mind.
Yeah,
More assets just equal better things.
yeah. So who were to say Atlanta gets in the lottery next year? Um, they get in the lottery. Say Minnesota makes it as the I don't know. We get the 18th pick from Minnesota or 20th. We also have what the 27, 26, 28th pick. You have all 3 of those. Let's just say, just wildly, hey, we could actually package all 3 of those and trade into a top pick in a draft, or we could trade that to a player or something like that.
Right.
That's a big asset to have. So you know, seems
I definitely think, again, like just collect your assets and use them wisely. I think we've heard all of these rumors about Boston. And the
yeah.
reason why you keep hearing them is they've just done a great job of collecting assets.
Well,
A lot of
also,
folks.
I feel like they just like held up Billy King in a like behind a grocery store or something and say, "Give us your draft picks." 'Cause what they're getting from the Nets is just robbery. Like,
Yeah, it wow.
yeah.
That.
But so something else I wanted to mention about this 3-team trade is apparently now this could be completely wrong, but it appears that Denver has the option of saving more money if they were to do a sign and trade. It doesn't have to be Millsap, but doing it with Millsap would help us. But it doesn't have to be Millsap. But if they were to do a sign and trade, at least within this 3-team trade, they'd be saving around $12 million, and that would mean that they would have to shed someone on their contract from a group of like Will Barton, Jameer Nelson, Darrell Arthur, Wilson Chandler, or Fareed. They would have to go to Atlanta, and if Atlanta has a choice, there's really only one name in there that you go for, and that's Will Barton.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Again, by the time this comes out, the trade may have gone through. The trade may have been called off. I don't know, but it just seems like that's something to keep an eye on. Although I am finding it interesting that there are so many mix-ups with cap issues amongst front offices. It makes me kind of realize that, oh, these are scouts doing the work on all this, not necessarily businessmen. So I kind of wonder how come there are so many issues with it. And I'm like, oh, never mind. Scouts and coaches and family members, not necessarily guys who got an MBA from UGA or Georgia State or whatever college. I, I don't know. Do you have any last remaining thoughts on this possible 3-team trade that could go down?
Give me Willard Barton. That would make me super happy. um, that's a guy that I feel would fit in and could be a just a core guy. I don't know if he's coming off the bench, but just somebody that I've really enjoyed watching the last couple of years. Jameer Nelson, I think if we can get a backup point guard, that wouldn't be bad either. Yeah, so I mean, technically, we are getting something back from Paul, I guess.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we can pull this off, it can kind of lessen the blow of seeing Paul Millsap leave and having
Yeah.
to say bye to that Was that an 80-foot billboard? That was something like
Oh,
75.
oh yeah.
Ah,
I wonder if I can like put it in my backyard, put it in my parents' backyard or something.
that is something I would be willing to pay for if it is available. I don't know where I'd get that money from, but if I could, I would.
Well, we're gonna miss Paul, and I was just more as upset at the fact we got nothing back, and it was just kind of like one of those "I told you so" kind of things. But it's whatever. I'm over it now. Let's see let's see what happens with the Hawks going forward. Though before we get into the questions, I do want to pose one question to you, and this I don't know may bring the show down, may bring it up, may make us wonder. But what is the fate of Mike Budenholzer now? We all know that Mike Budenholzer was essentially demoted to being a head coach. You go to any normal person at their job, John, you go to your job, you go to my job, and you tell someone they're getting demoted. You tell me how they react. Like, you try to tell me that they're happy about that, and there was smiling about it. Um, he essentially got demoted. We've seen in press conferences. I don't know if this is something to keep an eye on. So for everybody listening, just try to keep an eye on this. Notice in the press conferences, Bud isn't really talking that much or interacting that much. He did that interview. They did that press conference of introduction to the draft picks. You notice Bud wasn't really talking that much. It was either Schlink or the players, and Bud was just kind of in the background. Um, should we be worried about Budenholzer leaving in a year or two?
Yeah, I think it's kind of fair to say whenever you have, first and foremost, whenever you have a regime change,
Yeah.
coaches are I wouldn't say necessarily on the chopping block, but they're kind of, you want to bring in your own guys. Everybody knows that. Whenever somebody new comes, when Danny Ferry came in, he wanted to bring in his own guy, and he brought in uh, Coach Bud.
Yeah.
So you'd have to wonder, now that he's kind of taking this demotion, how does he feel? Because I know Coach Bud is a very defensive minded coach. And we get two very offensive minded players in this draft here.
Yep.
So, and I hate to be that guy, but if you look at some of the pictures that he's taken with these draft picks, yeah, he just doesn't look wildly happy. And to your point, he hasn't been speaking on a lot of these press conferences. But this could all be speculation. Bud could just be as happy as all get out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's something to be concerned with. I think because especially you're going to have, it could very well be some choppy waters ahead. So how does Bud handle this? I think again he's, as many of these Hawks, is a high character guy.
Very.
So you know,
Um,
I wonder.
best coach that the city. I'm going to go ahead and be biasly say best coach the city of Atlanta has had in a long time. Just because, given the amount of talent on his teams, it's like, come on, like, yes, go back to that 60 win team. It's just like, come on. Looking at that roster, you can't tell me like any other coach. Who was somebody? One of my friend. Who's the Wizards coach?
Uh,
Uh,
my man used to coach OKC.
yeah,
Name
my
escapes me.
yeah. I don't know why I can't think of him all of a sudden. Um, but my buddy is a Wizards fan,
Mm.
and he would tell me, oh man, coach of the year. He got us the best season ever. And I'm just kind of like, uh, Scott Brooks. There we go.
Brooks, yeah.
Scott Brooks. I mean, he's good, but also it's kind of,
I mean, you had the current MVP and
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
second best players in the league on one of his teams, and
yeah.
now you downgrade him to John Wall and Bradley Beal and Otto
That,
Porter, who's playing
that's
out of his mind.
that sounds so tough. That's why I said to him, I'm like, give him the Hawks roster and let me know what magic he works. Because never once, because I was, well, not to go on Scott Brooks bashing, but Has there ever been a time when you looked at them and said, "Man, that was a great out of bounds timeout"? That was a great play out of bounds that they just ran. Man, that was a great play they ran at the end of the game.
I find myself often saying, "Wow, John Wall is good at basketball." That's about it.
John Wall, great pass, great,
Wow.
pass to the corner.
John
Man,
Wall just did a spin move and lost all four defensive players. He's really good at the basketball. So, but no, I haven't said, wow, that was a great play. That pick and roll I didn't see coming. You should just
yeah,
kind of, move the player out of the way and let John Wall do everything. And he's done that. So, I mean, this is not Scott Brooks bashing, but yeah, it's kind of to highlight the point of, you give a guy with modest talent and you see where he took it. I mean, he earned that Coach of the Year, I
yeah,
think, and he's weirdly gotten bashed for it, but it wasn't a fluke. Like, he earned that trophy.
yeah, yeah, just great. So it makes me kind of cry when I see fans blaming Budenholzer all the time. I'm like, you, you don't get it.
It feels like that 60-win season all over again. A lot of folks are mad, and I understand the frustration. It's been a long time since we've been good. By the same token, you've got a blessing here in Coach Bud, and I think he took a job that I think any coach would if they were given that opportunity.
Yeah, and I just feel those of you go back, go look at some Mike Woodson highlights.
Oh boy,
That was the most infuriating, frustrating basketball to watch. Go watch Larry Drew. He was also kind of Larry Stoneface Drew. It just
uh,
like uh, I
I enjoy watching him stalk up the sidelines and just look detached.
I was also enjoyed watching whenever Horford got two fouls in the first quarter, he would not come back in the game until halftime. That was another thing I distinctively remember. But
Oh boy,
I'm just saying, like Budenholzer is not great, not good, fantastic coach. To me, top five in the league, in my opinion. And I am really going to be hurt if he leaves.
listen, you take Peril Antich,
Yeah,
Paul Millsap, Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, and
like the guy who started behind Marvin Williams in Utah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you take these guys to the playoffs? Come on, man. Just put a little bit more
Yeah,
respect on his name. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
put some respect.
And
So
if he leaves and he goes on with a team with like some legitimate talent,
yeah, that was always the argument. I said, even with the 61 team, I said, like I was telling folks, I was like, this team is good, but let's not act like anybody on this team is like John Wall talented or you know what I'm saying? Let's not
I
act
mean,
we don't have a Kevin Durant on our team.
in fairness, you, with the exception of maybe Millsap, you
Yeah.
take anybody from that team, and they are officially the third to second option at best on any other team. And you just, yeah, we always talk about that go-to guy. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
So, coaching and scheme was heavily relied upon. And again, we had the most open shots for a reason.
Yeah.
I think it was just great when the ball movement is good and when everybody's out there running, it's a beautiful thing to watch. It's just when you slow it down and kind of gunk it up, it
Yeah.
gets a little hard to chew.
Yep. Well, let's see. That's pretty much it. Some breaking news. Mike Scott was offered a deal with the Wizards. So congrats to another player from the team, someplace else. No, but congrats to Mike Scott after the whole issue that he had with the run-in with the police and how we saw his playing time kind of dwindle. Made a made something out of himself, second round draft pick from Virginia. So congrats to him going to Washington. But I guess now we hate you because you're in Washington. So I don't know. Don't go and make like 5 3-pointers on us in a quarter.
If he brings back the giddy up dance with Washington on us, I might boo. Got to be honest. That's going to hurt.
Yeah. Well, we did have one question. Somebody did ask me this. So from at Zachary till T Gilbert, Mitch Pump, he asks, and you might love this. Is Diamond Stone a diamond in the rough? Question mark. How many bad jokes can be made about his name?
I'm looking forward to the Twitter puns from Diamond Stone's name. I really am. I mean, to be honest, like I said, I've just learned about this kid, so it's kind of hard to say. I think, in fairness, he has some tools. He was kind of, from what I understand, kind of pivotal part of that Maryland team. So he's only a year in the league. He's got tools. I mean, I don't know where his ceiling is, but he can play under the basket, outside the basket. He defends well. I don't know how many blocks he was averaging, but he got a few. So uh, I'm a strong believer within Hawks University. They've taken Tim Hardaway Jr. from kind of a forgotten guy from New York and is about to turn him into a multimillionaire
Yeah.
wherever he may end up, if it's here or somewhere else. So I would love to see what they do with him. I think, hey, he's got some tools. We'll see.
Now, Mitch, I will say, I think Magnum Roll might have been the greatest name, the previous greatest name in Hawks history when he did play for us for those like 2 games. But, but I don't know. Diamond Stone, like he might as well just put an emoji in his name, like when he has to put on the back of his jersey.
Uh,
Like,
doesn't he sound like one of the greatest action heroes?
either action hero, action villain, superhero. He sounds like, excuse me, a video game character or a Street Fighter character or something like that.
I look forward to hearing the Hawks announcer just announce Diamond Stone. That is going to be fun.
Well, I'm also kind of looking forward to the Hawks announcing games next year, and just you know how Bob is probably the most upbeat person I've ever met.
Indeed.
Talking that I've ever met, so I know he's going to be fine. I wonder how Neek is going to act next year now that Dwight is gone.
Dominique is that is going to be fun. I think that is. Yeah, I didn't even give any thought to that. Yeah, Dominique he has some names to play with now, so this
Yeah,
will
that's true.
it's going to be interesting.
Well, John, that wraps it up for us today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. John, give me a quick shout out where everyone can find you at, real quick.
I've got. You can find me on Twitter at JF Sutton Jr. I also have another handle and an Instagram account, AUG Hawks, AUG as in Augusta. So catch out my thoughts, feelings, and opinions there.
Cool. Cool. And as always, follow us at CawCast. Follow me at JLaneATL. You guys know the rest. Be sure to email, comment, question. Let us know what you think. If you have anything else. But besides that, once again, thank you, John. I'm doing my little bow. Thank you for joining me on this holiday morning and taking some time out from barbecuing.
Josh, it was a pleasure, man. I got to get back to these ribs.
All right, man. Appreciate it.